Yeah, so I've been spending the past couple of weeks installing IoT stuff in the home, and this is now my third generation IoT stuff. Um, the previous versions were too stupid security-wise to just install, followed by Insteon, which worked kind of sort of along as it didn't break. And now I'm ripping everything out and replacing it with Matter. And in the process, oh gosh, I've got 40 years, no, 45 years experience in computers. I know this stuff. If it's a pain for me, what is it like for somebody who's coming at it blind? So, yeah. So, the short for the talk is just don't be stupid. Don't do things that don't ask things of the user that are ridiculous. So yeah, so going through things, one of the biggest irritations is every single thing I tried to connect that wasn't a pure matter device like the light switches. First thing they want me to do is to create a cloud account, including I have to create the cloud account so that I can configure the device so I can use it with Matter. And many of them use OpenID, but of course, OpenID isn't open. It's a closed monopoly that if you've not got your ID from Google, Facebook, or Apple, and Apple's only sometimes supported, well, it's not going to work. So it's not really an open system at all. And since my wife was kicked off Facebook, Facebook just one morning decided she was a bot. She'd only been using it for 15 years, so they decided it was a bot, and she had to provide a 3D head scan to prove she was a human. So she said no. So yeah, so all the IoT things that she installed don't work. So in theory, it's one account, but in practice, no, it's not one account because it's not an account that I've got any control over. I don't get to choose which identity provider I use in the first place. And I certainly cannot switch from one identity provider to another. And using it, oh God, each time I'm asked to, I connect by OpenID, and then I've got to enter my email address and create a password for this cloud service that I'm going to forget. And I've got to respond to this SMS, and I've got to enter this code sound by email. Oh, and I've got to do that to get into Google. And then I've got to do it again. And then I've got to do it again. And then I've got to do it again because Samsung cannot work out how to do this thing. So, I've got a $3,000 fridge that's meant to be smart. I cannot connect it because I end up in this loop trying to connect it to the Samsung application. And yeah, passwords, yes, everybody asks for a password, and they're utterly stupid. You cannot have a secure password because the limit usually is 24 characters, which limits you to 80 bits of ergodicity, which ain't secure in my book. Yeah, you got all the things that we came up with one weekend in 1993, no, in 1992, when Crack was launched. And Crack had this dictionary attack on passwords. And so it could, a Spark station could churn through every possible password in a weekend. And so we had to add this uppercase and lowercase. That was just a hack. Crack worked at, I think it was 2 attempts per second. I've got a box sitting there that can crack any Windows NT password in a weekend. And that's just stock hardware. You know. Oh yeah, and if you forget the secondary passwords, well, that's just a big hole in your password system because, you know, remembering your mother's maiden name, that is a password. So we've taken something that's, so I don't need to rant to you about passwords, but I do for me. Yes. Sorry. So what I have in my IoT system right now, I've got so many of these cloud accounts. Apple, Google, Samsung, we think, and I got to remember all those passwords, and I ain't doing it. They all have the same password if I can. Yeah. As I say, don't be stupid. Um, and of course, people say, but they usability tested it. I have some experience in usability testing. Yes, we had that usability lab at VeriSign HQ. We inherited it from Netscape that had the building before us. And the first rule of usability testing is that having the lab isn't the same as using it. Using it isn't the same as knowing how to use it. And most of the people who do usability testing have no training in how to do usability testing. And so what they do is that they test their item in isolation. Yes, Randy, you have a question?
Oh yeah, sorry, I needed to unmute. Yeah, so I guess I'm just listening to, and I'm agreeing at one level. I'm agreeing with your general ranting about the level of interoperability and all the accounts, but I have a sneaking feeling you might be missing the forest for the trees when you're dealing with consumer accounts. When you're dealing with consumer devices, so many companies are not interested in selling the devices. They're interested in selling the subscriptions and they're selling the data. So they do not want to give up their own accounts because it's too essential to their business.
ah, yes, that I'm asked that one a lot, and yeah, I do actually have a scheme to get round that. First of all, work out a way of doing it right, doing it easy. Secondly, I'm going to produce an open source IoT doorbell and get it working. And then I'm going to put it on a Kickstarter. Not because I really want to make and sell these devices, I don't. But the thing about Kickstarter is there's a bajillion Chinese companies that look at stuff on Kickstarter, copy it, and sell it. And so all I need to do to kill the crappy IoT is to persuade somebody else to beat up these clueless companies who are trying to exploit me.
I'm sorry, I don't quite get the link between a
Oh, if
random random Chinese manufacturer stealing stuff off a Kickstarter and improved security.
well, well, we can go into the making it in China thing, but my Ring doorbell's made in China as well.
Yeah, no, I understand everything that you want to do. I'm just sort of stuck with the practical realities and how do you get there from here type problem.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I do have a track record here. Back when the
Okay.
web was being created at CERN, uh, corporate America had a different view of what the web was going to be, and it was called interactive TV.
Right, right.
And the thing is that, yes, yeah, I did all that corporate thing. This is the reason that I can afford to, spend 10 years doing whatever the hell I like, um, building this stuff and pay other people to build it if I need to.
I think
Uh, yeah.
I
But
think
anyway,
Phil's point, Randy, is that he's going to create a better reference design and in a way that it'll get intentionally stolen.
yes,
Okay.
that's, yeah. Okay, so
Oh, it's probably yeah. I'll concede that is as good a plan as we're probably going to get in the environment.
right.
Okay, so that sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so my constraint for my belief is that an IoT device should require no more than 50 minutes administration per decade. All I should have to do is to connect it, and then I should just be able to forget it unless I need to tell it to do something. And the thing is that if you've got that as your model, well, remembering the password to a cloud service that may have gone away by the time I come back. I can't even remember the company that produced some of the devices I'm connecting up, let alone which app. WeThings, the weighing scale, has changed its name 3 times since I bought it. It's and it's now changed name so many times it's back to its original name, and I can use the original app. But so my point is that when people are saying, "Oh, we did usability testing," if you drill down, mostly they didn't. And then finally, on the rant stage, a lot of smart devices aren't smart. I spent literally an hour getting my LG devices connected up to my Wi-Fi, and then to the SmartThings app, and then to Home Assistant. I've got 3 LG devices: a television, a dishwasher, a washing machine, and a clothes dryer. And only one of them showed up in Home Assistant. And I can do absolutely nothing with it in Home Assistant because it doesn't say anything to Home Assistant. The clothes washer won't connect up because the chuckleheads put their Wi-Fi antenna in a metal box. So yeah. So Michael,
does your washing machine and your dishwasher, do they at least coordinate? Because I don't have enough hot water from my tankless thing to run both at the same time, but it would be lovely if they could take turns.
The only control surface that I have on the clothes dryer is that it will tell me which program it is set to. I cannot set the program. I mean, it really is chocolate teapot levels of being smart. And the problem there is the smartness here isn't really there for the end consumer. It was purely put in for some vice president who was really into IoT and asked some developers in the company to make it smart, and they didn't know what smart was. So one of the things we have to do is to tell people what smart is. And that's what I'm going to be spending my time doing when I launch my YouTube channel. Yes, I'll tell people what is smart, but I'll also spend a lot of time telling people what is stupid. So I'm really good at ranting, which is why Michael called me to talk. But my real concern is how to fix it. And the thing is that we've got fixes available to us that we can just take as a home run almost immediately. So one of them, let the user pick their OAuth provider. I complained about OpenID being a closed shop. If you go to Blue Sky, they're using the same OAuth backend as OpenID. They're using a slightly different flavor. They're not going through the OpenID Foundation, but it's the same ITF backend. The only thing that they've changed is they have a DNS name in front of it. So if you go to look at the text records for phil.hallam-baker.com, you will see that there's a prefix text record out there that gives a DID, which is some W3C nonsense that is supposed to be some sort of identifier that identifies things, and that can be resolved to a fingerprint of my public key credential and resolves to the OAuth authentication service. So from phil.hallam-baker.com, anybody with access to the DNS can go to an authentication server. Actually, it's an authorization server because it's OAuth, but same difference, and authenticate me. So now we've taken OpenID from being a closed shop to an open shop. And what I propose we do is we go one stage further and we detach that trope for using OAuth, and we make it a separate thing, which I called Anywhere just because I need to give it a name. And the idea here is that we use that as our one account for logging into any internet service. And the nice thing here is that if I own my internet DNS name, I can change my DNS service at any time. I can change my resolver. I can change my registrar. So what I'm proposing here is we use the DNS handle trope and we just extend it slightly so that instead of it being tied to OAuth, which is one authentication and authorization scheme, so it can also support SAML, which, I wrote the docs for SAML 1.0, so I like SAML. But I'd also like it to be usable for any future scheme that we might create. Because, one of the big constraints on OAuth and SAML is that they both have to work within the constraints of the user is behind a web browser. And being behind a web browser turns out to be a really big constraint because your only way of persisting the connection is through HTTP cookies, which are an abomination. So I'd like to make it so that we can support any authentication mechanism. And all we need to do then to make it truly end-to-end is to put the user in control of that private key. And that's where my mathematical mesh technology, which I'll not go into today, that's an infrastructure that's designed to allow ordinary people to control their own private keys. So the idea here is that we've got one identity under the user's direct control, and the user now is the sole party that decides what their authentication mechanism is. It can be a really low security password. It can be public key authentication to my smartphone, my watch. It can be high security. It can be a something I have plus a PIN, so that I might have two logins to my broker, one to read what's going on in my account, and a second one for if I'm going to make a trade. And the thing is that I can make it so that the authentication section is always validated by a public key. So the consumers of that authentication service are always getting good authenticated data. And so Anywhere is just a way of decoupling those two things and putting a name on it so that people can recognize it. Second big change that we can make is, let's fix the way we connect up IoT devices. Today, what I have to do is to power the device on, scan the QR code device with an app, which is already a lose because, if I am putting a smart light bulb into a fixture that's in the ceiling and I'm on a ladder, the last thing I would then want to do is to be waving a smartphone around it so that I can scan a QR code. I have to wait for the device to respond. And then if it fails, I have to try all over again and again, because my time doesn't matter. I'm only the person who bought this thing. I don't matter. I'm a small person. That's what the company selling this thing to me is telling me again and again. You're unimportant. You've done all this work. You got it wrong. Do it again. So how do we fix that? Well, it doesn't have to be that way. All we're trying to do here is to connect up the device to the digital gestalt of the owner. And that can happen in any order. I need to acquire some profile of that device so I know what the device is, what it can do, and how I can create that initial bootstrap connection to it. I need to tell my digital gestalt, in my case, Home Assistant, could be Homey, could be anything. I got to tell it its device name, where I put it, what I want it to do, and so on. And I have to plug it in. But those should be things I can do in any order. I've just got a bunch of Inner Valley light switches delivered. So I've got 20 of them sitting in the front hall. I should just be able to go through, scan the QR code on each one of them so that that is there lodged in my Home Assistant system. And then when I screw the light bulb in, maybe today, maybe in a month, maybe in 3 years when the thing that it is replacing died, then it says, oh, I can connect. We don't need to force users into this one way of doing things that was thought up by the engineer who's doing the thing. And so the mechanism that I use for this is a thing I call the URL, which is an encrypting authenticated resource locator. So this is a URI. It can be encoded in an NFT tag. It can be encoded in a QR code. And it is basically a connection mechanisms on steroids. Because what we have here is we have this, okay, so URL method. This is a example.com is the site we're going to eventually resolve it at. And what we have here is the multi-purpose key. I'll come back to how we get that in a moment. But the way that we resolve it is we take a message digest of that. This one is a SHA-2 version. So we take the message digest of the master key, and that gives us a locator that we take the example.com, we take well-known, it's an URL, and we put the locator data, base 32 encoded, onto that blob, and that is the key that we now use to retrieve our encrypted blob. To decrypt it, we take that multi-purpose key again, we put it through a slightly different hash. It's again SHA-2 512 base, provides us with the decryption key. And finally, when we decrypt it, we take the SHA-256 hash again of the content this time, and that should give us our multi-purpose key. So we've got one short URI identifier that provides us with a means of locating, decrypting, and authenticating the corresponding content. So what that means is that this URI is in effect a bearer token for that document. Originally, I came up with this because I was doing some consulting for a healthcare company, and they wanted to have a way that they could scan a QR code that had the same security properties as the piece of paper that the QR code was on. And this gives you the exact match without any need for public key or any infrastructure beyond a web server. And because that multi-purpose key is a constant, you can even pull it from a local repository. It can be cached. So what I can do is I can scan all my QR codes of my devices when I first acquire them, grab all the corresponding documents, store them locally, and then I don't need to worry about the manufacturer going bankrupt and the website going offline. I've got that stored locally and I'm secure. So advantages of this approach: device description is no longer tied to the QR code side. So we can have as many connection profiles there as we need. Instead of the QR code just being for matter, you've probably seen devices where they have 6 different QR codes on them. Well, I have. And you're trying to connect via matter. You scan a QR code and says, no, that's not the matter one. You scan another one. No, that wasn't either. You just kind of like hunt the device because there's 6 different QR codes on it. Well, using this approach, you can have one QR code that supports any one of those connection profiles, and you're not limited to credentials for just one protocol. It means that we can have a device that will connect over using the old app or some new app. And the new app can be completely backwards compatible without having to tell it which type of QR code it is serving. The QR code is the bearer token authenticating the user to the device, so that when the only person who I'm going to allow to connect that device to my network is, the only network that device is going to allow itself to connect to is the network it is told about when it is a connect mode and somebody gives it the corresponding credential to that QR code. So I've been ranting. I do hope I've provided some explanation of how we could solve some of the confusion. But, the main thing that I think we need is we need to get to a user-centered version of IoT that doesn't turn it into a torture test. Because if we do not, people are going to get fed up of IoT. We're going to burn through the early adopters. They're going to get fed up and drop out, and we're never going to see this thing fly. There are 2 possible outcomes here. One is everybody's using IoT and everybody has a smart code. The much more likely one is IoT remains something that is only ever used by a small circle of gearheads like myself who are prepared to put $5,000 worth of equipment into their walls and have it not work very well. Thank you. So, questions. Randy, you've got a question.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the European CRA at all?
No.
Okay. Well, this basically, I've been a lot of the people involved in industrial automation space are very concerned about this because it's a whole bunch of cybersecurity requirements for devices.
Oh, right. Yes. I'm familiar with some of them. I've not read the directive. As you may know, my country got kicked out of the EU for being naughty. So,
yeah, okay. Well, the point is that this is a regulatory framework that gives some unique opportunities to drive some of this stuff, because even though they haven't actually sort of explicitly named out this, but one of the thing is that every consumer device can't be using passwords and has to have some sort of minimum level of security. There's a lot of things here, and so there's some opportunities within this framework if you happen to have connections with the right people in the right industries. Unfortunately, I work a lot with industrial automation vendors, so I know PLC vendors, but not so many smart refrigerator makers.
yes, I mean, like at this point, I've got no employer. I'm self-employed, so I'm trying to set myself up as an advocate for the consumer. I was one of the founders of VLSI. I'm not in need of a few bob. I can afford to indulge my political. So I want to advocate for the consumer. Obviously, advocating for the consumer to Brussels is a very high leverage place to get something to happen. What I plan to be doing is in the coming weeks, I'm going to be launching MPlace 2. So Medium Place 2 is using that same anywhere login to allow me to create a social media site that piggybacks off Blue Sky. So if you've got a Blue Sky account, you can log into my place and comment without having to create another account, without having to go through all the, and as an account, as a manager of the site, I don't have to think about passwords or resets or any of that. So it simplifies things for me. So I'm setting that. I'll be setting that up. Hopefully the end of this week, maybe the beginning of next. I've spent the past 6 months rewiring the house to support the networking. I've got a full commercial internet drop now. So my plan is I'm going to be starting this social media and advocating for the user and going on YouTube with similar rants to this one. And so one of the tropes I will probably be picking up is, this is what Europe's telling the manufacturers to do. This is what they're complaining of. Here's how it could save them. Because at the end of the day, the web saved the ass of Time Warner. They made more money out of us than they did out of interactive TV. But sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is one of the interesting differences between sort of factory settings and the consumer settings is one of the big things that the factory owners need to solve is counterfeit devices.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and so a lot of what we do is we say, well, how do we make sure that once we plug this thing into this network, it's actually coming from the manufacturer that's listed on the label. It's not some cheap knockoff from one of these factories in China.
I will give that some thought. I mean, I have spent some time thinking through the counterfeiting problem from the angle of pharmaceuticals. Because it turns out that when you go to CVS and you pick up a packet of Monjaro or whatever, you might think that there is an unbroken chain from the factory that made it to CVS that can be audited pretty quick. Oh no, that would be too easy. It turns out that even in the case that the manufacturer is selling the stuff direct to the pharmacy, the stuff that they sell may come out of a warehouse that they don't control. And so, counterfeiting is a real concern there. And the thing there is that Monjaro is one thing. Cancer drugs. We had here in Massachusetts, we had a fake compounding pharmacy, and people died as a result of the drugs being faked. But yes, what we could now, the problem that I see with applying this technology is a device manufacturer can always take one device and copy a good QR code and the corresponding data from it. So you're not
right,
going to...
but the way we're trying to solve this in the industrial environment is you have some sort of digital identity that's baked into the hardware in something secure like a TPM chip or equivalent. And then you have some way of linking the data that's in the TPM to the label that's on the device.
We can definitely do that and put, we can put a field into the connection, the device profile saying, if you want to check that I'm genuine, you can check me via this public key. and here's a certificate for Samsung or Ring or whoever, and it shows that it is genuine. The only thing that won't get directly is, that we can put a TPM in the device, but we do not put a FIPS 140-4 device into the TPM in the device. It's going to be possible to reverse engineer most consumer grade equipment if somebody's willing to go to the length of what I have in the basement. So, I mean, if you've got the fuming nitric electron microscope, you can get the key back. So then what you need to pair it with is some sort of service in the cloud that you ping, and it tells you how many times that device has been, that public key has been used. So that then if somebody does do a cloning attack on you and you've got one of the cloned device, then it will come out and say, yes, it's genuine. Oh, yeah, but it's one of 3,000 others. At which point you reckon, I've been had.
Yeah, okay, that's yeah. The approach that we're talking about is entirely based on certificate PKI. What happens is you got some way to distribute potentially offline basically a whitelist. So basically your factory gets a list of devices that's expecting, and then it simply, when a device is connected, it verifies against the whitelist, and that's how you ensure that you haven't been cloned. But that depends entirely on the security of the hardware that has the key. As soon as that can be broken for whatever reason, the entire thing breaks down. And I think that's a problem that we can't get away with, because if you can literally clone everything like a Star Trek transporter level of cloning, there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop that. So, but we've been working towards having this kind of the zero touch configuration. You plug your device in, there's some service that's running on the network that's operating as a black box. It's supporting open protocols. It negotiates with the service. It proves its identity, and it's compared against the pre-configured whitelist, so you don't have rogue devices connecting. And then once that's all done, but what happens is that in this model, the user isn't necessarily configuring every device. What the user is doing is they're planning in this case, if we wanted to apply it to a home, they'd be planning it in advance, saying, I'm going to have 10 light switches, I'm going to have a TV, I'm going to have my washing machine. And then it would say, these are the things that I'm going to plug in. And then I plug it in, and then through some protocol, it would identify itself, its role would be assigned, and then it would be secured. And the user never has to do anything other than that. It doesn't even have to really interact with the device.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much the conclusion I came to. And the thing is that if you think of it, when I have an installer put in one of these light switches, I mean, I'm a qualified electronic engineer. I can wire up a light switch, but I don't necessarily want to. I don't drag wires through walls. I hire people to do that. And the thing is that if I have one of these smart light switches and I give it to the electrician to put in, I cannot ask the electrician to configure it to my home assistant.
Right. But if you could plug it into the network, and you've got this some sort of device, it just has to be a black box on your network that will detect that thing and configure it. So all you need to tell the technician is you plug it in and you make sure it's connected to the network.
So the way I'm planning to do that, I've got an architecture so far. I've not got running code. I have running code and everything I described here today. So I have a Ubiquity Dream Machine is the network gateway. I have all Ubiquity Wi-Fi, and I'm currently using 3 of the 4 SSIDs they'll let me have. I plan to use the 4th one for device connect, and I'll use it in a round robin fashion. And so what I will do is I will broadcast that SSID on a different hailing frequency every 15 seconds or minute or whatever. So when I read a device description, part of it will be telling the Home Assistant, whatever, which Wi-Fi SSID it will be waiting on for a connect request. Or it will make a connect request too. And so what I will do is I will use that to round robin just poll to see if one of those registered but not connected devices has actually been installed since the last poll. So then I can have a Tiffy come in, put in a light switch or a bulb or whatever, and it will automatically connect within an hour or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. It's completely hands off. You set up the initial infrastructure. You say, this is what I want in my house. And that's basically it. And after that, everything is handled automatically.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be even easier if Wi-Fi wasn't quite so clueless and so wedded to the idea of you join the network to the device and then it can talk. And do you know Bob Frankston?
No.
He was one of the 2 authors of VisiCalc.
Okay.
And he is up in Newton, and he spends his time doing Home Assistant, home IoT stuff. And his signature rant is on why the network paradigm is wrong, and it's just packets, and they should just work, and you shouldn't need to go through this. If I have I should be able to put a device up there that just listens for SSIDs it's not seen before and tells some service of mine. Actually, I could do that on a Raspberry Pi, I guess. But oh no, I need to have the coverage throughout the house. That's the problem. So yeah, if I could persuade Ubiquity to get involved, things would be a lot simpler. But they are good on most things. I mean, like they are the one IoT company that I don't rant about. The only thing is, they're not cheap.
Yeah. So.
Have you got more slides, Phil? Are you at the end?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Thank you all. So our next meeting is in the first Tuesday of July, which I had a calendar and then I lost it. It's going to be July 7th. But please join. Want to have a longer conversation on the mailing list about funding the stencil work. And I hope we'll get some, we can talk about that a little bit more this week. Anyone else got any comments? Any other business?
Where can I get more information about this URL protocol? Is that already published, or is this just an idea for you?
It's published as an internet draft. If you go to the Internet Drafts Archive and look for Hallam-Baker Earl, there are a few different. I've been developing it for over a decade, so there are a few different instantiations. You want the most recent, which is it may have expired 6 months ago, but it's not much more than 6 months ago.
Hardest part is remembering there's two L's in Hallam.
And Phil. Yeah.
And Phil, yeah.
Yeah. I'll just get you the.
Well, okay, I got a whole pile of. Do you have a name for it? What is it? Is it
It's
just
math. EARL, I think, is in the name, actually.
okay? Okay, it's not in this list.
Draft. Yeah.
Can somebody
Draft.
maybe drop a link in Zoom chat?
Yes,
that works too. Perfect. I'll take a look at that in more detail because it seems interesting. I'll have to try and figure out how it could be incorporated into, if it can be incorporated into a manufacturing set environment.
Yeah, if you do go that route, please let me know, because the status that I have in IETF is I showed it to people and say, "Well, who's using it?" So it's kind of like the minute that I get one person that uses it, I think I can get it published as an RFC. But until that happens, they can continue to be skeptical.
Right, and just we're doing an update of a document standard that we have here. I'm going to put this into the link as well. And if we did anything with this URL thing, it would go into this document.
Right.
That I just put there.
Yeah, I do. So the most immediate application for the URL is my contact scheme. So the thing is, you're familiar with vCard, right? There's an ITF group that has done vCard in JSON, which, and I then looked at that and said, well, yeah, but the crypto is kind of like from when vCard was invented. We use OpenPGP for much more than mail today. In fact, mail isn't even, it's not in the top 10 of most
code signing.
Yeah, code signing, signing your Git commits, and we've got SSH. So the idea is Alice takes all her cryptographic credentials, she stuffs them into a JS contact, and then she can exchange that via a DNS handle or via an URL in a QR code or an NFC tag or whatever. There's actually a protocol that does bilateral authentication, so that then Alice gets Bob's contact and Bob gets Alice's, and they both know that they did that in person. And so that's going to be where I will be launching that client. I've got it running on Windows, but obviously it wants to be running in in iOS and Android before it's interesting. And that's one of the next things I plan to do.